Good evening, welcome to my channel. I have something very different for you today. I know I always say that, but this one is quite different because it's not about writing primarily. Well, there are some aspects about writing, but it's mostly about how I directed my first feature film, Sparks and Embers. Obviously there are things I can't tell you. I can't tell you, the absolute secrets and ins and outs of financing, but I can tell you, broadly speaking, how this film came to exist, how we got it cast, the process of rehearsal and shoot and everything else, and what happened when it was released. So this will be a semi, warts and all, personal version of what happened leading up to the release of Sparks and Embers, which, by the way, you can catch on Amazon Prime, I believe, possibly other places. Try iMovies, iTunes, whatever it's called these days. But certainly it's on Prime at the moment, I believe, and it's a nice Christmassy film. So as we're leading up to that season, you might want to take a look. Anyway, so the original idea for Sparks and Embers, I think I had it around 2007, and believe it or not, the rather cumbersome initial title was The First and Last Time We Met, which gives you a sort of notion of what I thought was a fairly unusual and unique structure. So we were going to see the first time a couple meet and potentially the last time they ever meet, with a gap in between and intercut between the two. That was my initial structural idea, upon which I hung the characters and the conflict and everything else. Initially it was going to be all set outdoors because I just thought that would be easier somehow, don't know why. And one part was going to be shot somewhere like Richmond Deer Park and the other part on the South Bank. But it was very hard to think of a reason, a structural... Well, let me just give you the basic plot, and then I'll go into why that changed. So the basic plot of Sparks and Embers is Tom and Eloise are two people who have every reason to hate each other. Tom has just been fired or made redundant from his lovely job at a record company. It was easy, he didn't have to work too hard. He loved the job, but he was made redundant. And he was made redundant because a consultant came to the company to try and make some cost savings, and one of the savings that she made was, recommending that a few staff are made redundant, and Tom was one of those. So also, Tom's the kind of person that Eloise instinctively dislikes because she thinks he's lazy, she thinks he's crude, he's not sophisticated, he's not her kind of guy. And then, of course, they are forced together by chance. Now, I couldn't think of a way to do that outside. Initially, I had the stupid notion that Tom would accidentally run over her dog or cat. I think I had this notion that she'd walk a cat, because I have a friend who used to walk a cat. Anyway, he would run over her pet, and then she would be running around desperately trying to find this animal, and he'd know that he'd run it over and hid it in his boot of his car, and he would feel bound to sort of help her look for her pet, and that at some point he's going to confess. It didn't really work. There wasn't really any logical way to make that happen, and so I was avoiding the obvious for a long time, and then I thought, well, two people stuck in a confined space, why not just a broken down lift? These things happen. It will be an easy set to build, we thought naively, and it will be, they'll have, we can have it so that it's in the middle of summer and the air conditioning's broken, so it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter, and they haven't got any water and they haven't got anything to eat, and the doors won't open even at all, hardly. So yeah, it did seem like I could ratchet up the tension in that little space very easily. So that's what the first change that happened. In subsequent drafts, partly due to financing, it was recommended that we could make it more saleable if it was set at Christmas, because then we could have we could use all the lovely decorations and stuff that are already going to be on the South Bank, so we don't have to pay for them because they'll be there, and we can make it sort of feel more romantic, sort of rom-com set at Christmas. Yeah, there's hints of Love Actually in there, I suppose, but my primary influence in coming up with the script was actually Before Sunrise and Before Sunset, which one or two reviewers did spot. The Richard Curtis references that people levelled at the film were not really what I intended, but the Christmassy aspect of it did kind of make it suddenly become more of a sort of big Richard Curtis style rom-com, which anyway didn't really fit naturally into that box, but that's kind of what it ended up. I saw it as more an art house comedy drama, and it sort of became stylistically more of a conventional rom-com. But anyway, I thought, first feature, let's do something semi-commercial, get it out there, make an impact, hopefully kickstart a movie career. Didn't quite work for various reasons, but anyway, I'll go into some of that. We entered what's commonly known as development hell, which is where you have the script, you may even have the actors, because quite early on we did manage to attach Annalise, the actress, Annalise M, because I'd worked with her on a short film called Beyond, which you will find on my channel. I will put it up there if I haven't done so already. And so I'd worked with her, so I knew she was great. I knew she would be fantastic in this role as Eloise, and I kind of wrote it for her, to be honest. And I made the character French because it was just going to be easier. And then I thought, well, who would be great opposite her? And at that point, I think Chris Marshall had just finished doing all the BT ads, and the fact that he was on TV all the time and was really popular, and he was in My Family, and he'd done a few movies, but he never really had a lead role. He'd had supporting roles, character roles. I just thought, well, this is a lead role for him in a commercial movie, as I hoped it would be. So, it should be right up his street. And yes, we had other actors on our list, and as is always the case, we'd been to some other people, but actually, as the script developed, it became more and more appropriate for Chris, and we got it to him, and he was very kindly interested. What happens when actors are interested in a movie but there's no financing firmly in place is you get a kind of conditional yes. You get sort of, well, in principle, if the shoot works, if the money works, then yes. Then you can sort of use that to go to people like sales agents, distributors, other equity funds, other banks even, basically various sources of finance, hopefully convinced by the fact that you've got a script finished, it's a genre that's potentially commercial, and you've got noted actors in it, and then the budget works, But the difficult thing with financing any independent movie, especially in the UK, is that we're a small island. Our movies don't always travel. There are a few that do, like, I don't know, I was going to say Billy Idol. What's it called? The one about the ballet dancing miner's son or something. Billy Elliot and the Full Monty. Basically, it's got to be about working class people doing some form of art. I don't know why, it just seems to work. So it's very difficult to find a market for a movie if the budget's over a certain level. But it's very difficult to get a glossy film that can compete with American Hollywood product unless you spend a certain amount of money. So the holy grail for any filmmaker is to find a film that costs very little money, that's in a very popular genre, that can either attract notable talent or it doesn't need it because it's like a horror film, so they're all going to get killed anyway. And Netflix will jump on it, But I decided not to go for the horror film approach, which a lot of filmmakers do the first time around, and try something a bit braver, rom-com. Anyway, so we produced, with many iterations, this document, which is an investor's pack. I won't go into great detail, but basically my cousin, Ken, very fine designer, I think I put him through like 14 iterations to make this thing. But it gives you an idea of, it's got Chris and Annalise, or whoever we thought was going to, two people representing those characters. It's got the London skyline. It's got colours that sort of suggest rom-com. And this document, which is, let's have a look, 30 pages long, 28 pages long. And I'll put on screen just some little bits that I can share that are safe to share. So the table of contents, for example, I'll just go through briefly. You start with an executive summary. Like any document, you just have one page where you give the gist of it, so that if they haven't got time to read the whole thing, they can just look at that. There's a bit that describes what the project's about. Then we go into cast. That's up front because that's one of the things that investors do care about. There's a synopsis of the story, and then we get sort of into the meat of the financing package. So we have analysis of the current market for feature films, just in case any of the investors have never invested in a movie before. Then we talk about the specific market for Sparks and Embers, and we actually have, and I would recommend anyone to do this who's thinking of funding a film, find some films that have done quite well in a similar genre that you can use as kind of examples of movies of this type that have succeeded. So we chose, let's have a look, what did we choose? Chose a handful of films. I mean, this is going to sound pretty old now because this document was made way back in 2011, and even then some of these films were rather old because the kind of films I wanted to reference were unusual, really. So I've got 2 Days in Paris, which again, 2 characters walking and talking, it's the main thing. Once, low budget film, romantic film that did fantastically well. Before Sunset, obviously, and Before Sunrise. Sliding Doors, because of the 2 different time frame thing. I think that's why we put that in. And When Harry Met Sally, because, you know, it's the ultimate rom-com, and why not? Why not shoot for the stars? So we put some sample movies together, and then we talked about, then we get sort of slightly more detailed about breakdowns of where we're going to get the finance from, how we're going to settle and market the film, projected returns. A lot of this is kind of, it has to be it's kind of fictional because you really don't know what's going to happen, but you can get estimates. One thing we did manage to do, which is a challenge, is with the script, with the cast, with the type of movie it was, with the budget we wanted, we went to a sales agent and they said, okay, well, we'll give you some estimates of what we think we can raise from various territories. Now, once you've got that, you can then hopefully show that the money raised will easily cover the budget you need to shoot the film, and produce a nice little profit, hopefully, so that you can at least say, well, look, we'll spend this much, we'll sell it for these minimums, and hopefully we'll turn a profit. Then we have a recoupment schedule, which is basically the order in which investors will be paid back. It's a big challenge, especially when you're having a lot of deferred fees for cast and crew and things. Who they have to get their money first, and then you have to have your investors. And everyone wants to recoup first, but it's not possible, you know. So either everyone gets recoupment at the same time, which is what we tried to do, or you just have to say, look, I'm sorry, this investor's putting in 70%, they have to get their money first, and the bank, which is putting in the last chunk, will recoup last with healthy interest. So anyway, so we put together this document, and we went to Cannes, and very fortunately my producer, Ben Craig, literally wrote the book on going to Cannes. So that was very helpful, and he knew exactly how to set up meetings, what kind of people we should be going to see. So we had lots of nice meetings in swanky hotels on the Croisette. Didn't quite produce the excitement that we had hoped to, but we did meet other people when we were there, and we did end up partnering with a couple of other production companies, including Green Screen Productions and Tall Tree, based in Newcastle, and Green Screens based in York. And we got an executive producer on board, and that was interesting. I don't want to say too much about that. What I will say is that he did finally raise the money. It took a long time. Sometimes the money was there, sometimes it suddenly wasn't there. And I think his grandmother died at least 8 times. His car broke down several times. Anyway, interesting chap. The money was there, the money wasn't there, some of the money was there. Eventually we got enough money to shoot it. And then I was able to confirm with my actors, hooray, it's going to happen. So we managed to lock down a date when they're both going to be available, Chris and Annalise. because they're really the main people in it. Everyone else we can work around with extras and subsidiary characters. And we decide we're going to shoot December 2011, winter, on the South Bank. And then, because we need the illuminations, we need the lights, we need the Christmas feeling. And then we're going to shoot in January in a studio in Twickenham, where we're going to build the set of the lift, which is about 45% of the film. And then there's a couple of other locations for the exterior of the office and the Eurostar. Actually, that's fun. That's the first thing we shot. I forgot to mention, we shot the Eurostar first. Now, because we were a low budget production, and the Eurostar, if we were to try and book a train ourselves, would have cost thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds. They said that we could film on the earliest train in the day, 5 o'clock I think it was, or 5:15 in the morning. And we just have to shoot around the passengers and try not to get their faces in shot without, them signing waivers, which we managed to do, believe it or not. Our big problem was, can we shoot scenes that are supposed to take place after the sun's gone down, so it's night, or 5, 6 in the evening on a winter's night, but we're shooting in the morning, so if we don't get the shots in the can, the sun is coming up, so the sky outside the train is getting lighter. But that was really fun, and it was really enlightening that we managed to pull it off. And I think those are some of the best scenes in the film. And those are the scenes at the end of the film. So I would say that particularly Annalise, who's in those scenes, did a fantastic job, with some real amazing emotional response. I play a little cameo, well, my elbow does. But she managed to conjure up tears, and I was just really happy with what she did. And then we start shooting on the South Bank. Now, I need to rewind a bit, because one unusual thing we did, which both actors loved, was we did some rehearsals. So we brought Annalise over from France a week early. Chris was available. We actually went onto the South Bank, and I got them walking and talking and performing some of the script together. And we also did some rehearsals in some rather unusual locations, including I had a friend who knew some sort of anarchists that were kind of occupying an old office building. It was very strange, and they let us in and to this uninhabited office building that had, obviously there'd been leaks, and the floor smelled of like water, moldy carpet, and it was unheated, so it's kind of brutal. But it meant when they're wearing their winter coats and stuff, even in the building, it was realistic. They didn't have to act being cold. But this got them to know each other. Because the thing is, we're shooting the second half of the film first, where they have had a 5-year relationship and split up. So those people know each other really well. So I just wanted to give them a bit of familiarity. So quite often we were off book. We would just talk to each other. Just say what you want to say, but don't use the script. And I think that helped. They certainly seem to prefer it. I think Chris said, "I've never had this opportunity," so I would probably do it again. And then we had the shoot, and the shoot was both fantastic and terrifying. I'd shot short films, I'd done music videos, but I'd never worked with a crew and cast this size. Not that we had many extras for scenes where we wanted extras, but I think the crew was like 25, 30 people. And we had, at one point we had literally a giant balloon, like a zeppelin, with lights in it that glows and gives a kind of soft light over a very large area. So you float this thing up it's full of helium as well. You float it up and you tether it, and then it sort of gives a kind of moonlight glow over things. So we used one of those. That was amazing. Lots of Steadicam, and lots of very expensive locations that we couldn't return to, because I think the South Bank Centre was something like £20,000 for 1 or 2 days. So this was quite a big chunk of our budget. But it only rained I think 2.5 days, which out of something like 12 shoot days on the South Bank was pretty amazing. Because it wasn't going to be very easy to reproduce rain. So we did have one day where it rained quite heavily, and we tried to create a screen and move it over walk with the screen thing moving over the actors, but then the sound was terrible because you could hear the raindrops falling on the plastic. But we worked around it, and I like those scenes. And even the critics that didn't like the film, I think one of them said those were the best scenes, on the South Bank, and that the film should have been just that. Well, maybe that's another movie. Who knows? Anyway, so the South Bank shoot, I was terrified the first day I turned up. I just thought, my God, everyone's going to want me to know exactly what's going on. And we had a first AD who wasn't very experienced, and he had to be replaced. We had to replace him with someone else who had done the job before, because the first AD is a crucial role. First AD is like Sergeant Major, basically making sure that you get everything shot on time, everyone's working, everyone's moving on to the next thing, and the DP's not tweaking the lights forever because, light is there, medium, and it has to be right, and they want to take time to do it, but often there isn't time to get it perfect. Anyway, we had some challenges. At one point I had 7 pages of script to shoot in a day, or 7 pages of script to shoot in a couple of hours. So we had to do a massive, great, long sequence with the camera moving around this space and going in and out of things, and I think it kind of worked quite well in the end. And it was, I'll always have that as a fond memory of those weeks on the South Bank, because I thought, yes, this is what I want to do with my life. Hasn't worked out that way really, but I still hope to shoot other films. I have things in the pipeline, which I might tell you about at the end. So anyway, it was a fantastic experience. Then, after the shoot was finished, in fact, I was so knackered at the end of the shoot, I'll just tell you this. After the last day of the shoot, I had a bottle of champagne ready to celebrate, and everyone was so exhausted. It was 3:30 in the morning. Nobody wanted any champagne. They just wanted to go home in taxis. So we all went home. We, a few high fives, and we went home. I was waiting for the taxi that had been ordered for me, and it just didn't come. And so I thought, what, I'm just gonna flag one down. There were taxis going past. I'm just gonna flag down a black cab. So I went to get some money out, because this is, this is 2012. So we're not using cards to pay for taxis back then. Cash is what we're using. So I went to the cash machine, and I'd forgotten my PIN number. My PIN number had just been erased from my head. I couldn't get any money out, so I had to wait for the taxi that had been booked. So it took another half an hour, I think. Me shivering alone and thinking, this is not what a director is supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be off in a limousine somewhere, partying, rap. Anyway, it wasn't really the rap, because we'd only done half the film. So in February, not January, because we had a bit of a glitch with the financing. I still don't, to this day, don't know what happened, but anyway. It disappeared, and then it reappeared. And then in February, we finally managed to shoot. Now we shot initially a few days in, did we do that first? Can't remember which order we did it in now, so long ago. No, I think we did Twickenham first. So we had a studio in Twickenham, which turns out to be the studio where the Beatles were first trying to record Let It Be before they moved to Apple. So if you've seen that film, you'll have seen Twickenham Studios. And that was great. There was this stunning set that our designer Alex had made. Am I getting confused with the names? I might be. It's like a decade ago. Anyway, maybe I'll put some credits up, or you can look it up on IMDb if you want. But we had this fantastic set. Lifts. If you notice in movies, lifts are either, if they're brave, they're using brushed steel, like stainless steel, not super reflective. They've tried to reduce how reflective it is, but a lot of them, you'll notice it's got kind of like a walnut wood, dark wood interior, and the reason for that is it doesn't reflect light so much. It doesn't, and you don't have reflections of the camera, obviously. So all the walls were designed to fly out, so we could shoot from different angles. We could shoot from above, we could shoot from kind of low angle, we could track in and out, because I wanted to do all of that. I'm shooting in a lift. It can't be boring, like straight on all the time. We have to do things. We have to mix it up. And I was really happy with what we got there. And I had a fantastic continuity person. She kept me sane by making sure I didn't forget anything, because I had a script marked up with all the different, using a tramline system, which basically means you underline which section of the script you're going to do with which shot. and they overlap, so you can edit between them, make choices of which ones you're going to use. That for me is a system I like using. Also a shot list, so you have for each scene you have like a list of all the shots in priority order. Like we've got to get the master shot of the whole scene from one angle, and then we do close-ups, we do some side over the shoulder shots, talking heads kind of thing. So we had all that set up and it all went pretty well. I was very happy with some of one of my favourite scenes is where they have the sort of fight scene that turns into a kind of love scene, and then the lift starts moving, and the bit where Tarek, the character who's outside the lift, who's like sort of janitor guy who's trying to help them, he manages to crowbar open the doors a couple of inches, and he's got a pipe with water and he's giving them water, and then he puts bits of toast through. I don't want to spoil the film entirely for you, but these are just little moments. Anyway, all that stuff worked really well and I enjoyed it. I thought we did a good job. And yeah, finally we called a wrap. I think we shot some scenes in an office complex in Chiswick, that we finally finished the stuff. Actually, the last scene of the, if it's Sparks and Embers, we finished the end of the Sparks at the end of the movie. So when they say goodbye, having just met for the first time, that was the end of our shoot. So it was quite poignant. And I had another cameo. So I had 2 cameos in this film. Ridiculous. This was a full body cameo. Look out for it. I think I looked fat for some reason. Anyway, yeah, I loved every minute of the shoot, to be honest. Even when I was highly stressed out and had to go and have a little calm down. Post-production, again, we had some more delays with finance, appearing, disappearing. But finally, we managed to do some post-production. We had Art for Noise, did fantastic sound design and sound editing and mix. We had, the final mix actually was in York at the university. They have a really nice mix studio there. I think it was fairly new. And what else? Yeah, so a lot of the post was done up in York. We got Annalise and Chris back in to do some ADR, which is automated dialogue replacement, which basically means, otherwise known as looping. So for lines that aren't very clear, or for when we want to add other little lines in, when the person's not on camera, we got them to record a bunch of other lines. Got Chris to sing. If you watch the movie, you'll see what I mean, but sing rather badly. He was quite good at doing that. And yeah, then we mixed the sound on the film and we did the grade. I think the grade was done at a place in Pinewood, I believe. Yeah, a little sort of portable cabin seemed to be in Pinewood anyway. And once we had the grade and the mix, we did the final online version of the film with all the credits and everything, all the music. My friend Dimitri did some fantastic music, which that was another thing I loved in post-production, was going to a recording studio, which was in this strange suburban street, but in a basement. The guy dug out a basement and built a whole recording studio, so we had like 12 string players in there and drummers and bands and things, and we recorded all sorts of music for it. And I was quite proud with what we did with the music. I sourced a whole bunch of bands, about advertisements in various online musician publications. So most of the music is small bands basically, and I thought, I curated that. It took me weeks and weeks to dig the music out. Nobody ever commented on the music in their reviews, annoyingly. But yeah, so the music was great. Post-production was thoroughly enjoyable, apart from some technical frustrations here and there, which I won't go into. And then finally the film was ready. Then we had another frustrating period where we're trying to sell it. So we've got a sales agent on board, and they've managed to sell a few territories, but they need to sell more, and then it just gets really, really painful and agonizing. And finally we got a UK distributor, but they thought they would do more sales, video on demand and DVD. Thought it'd be a good thing to have in supermarkets at Christmas. Have I got a copy here? No, I think I've packed it away because I'm moving. But anyway, the DVD was in Asda's, and I was really excited to see it there. That was a thrill. But here's the amazing thing. It got released on the same day as the first of the last 3 Star Wars movies. And the first of those was so popular that it was officially the worst day in the history of cinema to release any film that wasn't Star Wars. So nobody was seeing any other movies at all on that opening weekend. So we had a screening in the Ritzy in Brixton. 3 or 4 days it screened. I don't know how many people saw it, but the reason you sometimes do that, even if you don't plan to have a cinema release, because if it's had a cinema release, it has, maybe not so much now, but it has more kudos that you can sell it to video on demand and DVD and other territories because it's been screened in the UK, and I think it makes it eligible for festivals or awards. Not that we put our film in for anything like that, because it wasn't really that kind of movie. Comedies don't win awards, and romantic comedies definitely don't win awards. So, reception. When the film came out, quite a lot of critics did actually come to screenings, and they hated it. Well, they were either indifferent to it, or a couple of people really hated. A couple of online critics just acted like I'd slain their grandmother by making this film. I think the problem was we managed to make it glossy enough in its look and its sound that people thought I was trying to do a Richard Curtis, but on a shoestring. And if I'd gone for a more gritty, grainy sort of look and feel, maybe not set at Christmas, I think it might have sat better. I remember one critic took a pot shot at one of my dumb jokes, but the dumb joke was supposed to be a dumb joke by a drunken guy on the street. It's not supposed to be the epitome of wit from my point of view as a screenwriter, but he missed that. Might be my fault, I didn't make it clear. I didn't have Chris groan in response to it or something. Anyway, I did get one good and one semi-good review, and they were quite bizarre, because one was Sight and Sound, the August publication of the British Film Institute. They were quite kind to it. They don't do stars, but they said some quite nice things. Then Best magazine, which may not exist anymore. It's one of those sort of 50p, buy them in the supermarket, puzzles, gossip, and stuff about television shows, that kind of thing, Throwaway kind of, but I don't want to be cruel to them because they were nice. They gave it a really nice review. They liked it. And I've also been encouraged by the fact that most audiences seem to like it, seem to enjoy it. It got some. We did a test screening in York, and largely with young people, with like students, because those were the people who were available to come out to the campus, and they gave it like 7s out of 10 and stuff, which is quite unusual. But maybe they were just inclined because students like freebies. That's what I was thinking. Maybe they were just free film, yay. The premiere was fun. We did that in a nice posh Soho screening room in a hotel in Mayfair. And I was disappointed, I'll be honest, by the critical response. I was hoping it would launch me into something. Nobody pulls any punches. They don't make any allowances for it being your first film. They don't care. If you make your first film and it's wonderful, they will mention that it's your first film. It's his first film and it's wonderful. But if it's your first film and it's not great, or it's okay, they'll be like, this film is not good. This film is bad. This film is disappointing. They'll never mention it's your first. It's very odd. I don't really know why that is. I think maybe one person mentioned it was my first film, but nobody else did. So, yeah, slightly disappointed by the response, but, audiences mostly still seem to quite enjoy it. And why should your first movie be a masterpiece? We're not all Orson Welles, and also his career started high and went choom. So, had it done a little bit better, then perhaps I could have charged straight into the next project. Freudian slip there. But it did give me the impetus to do better. It's given me the desire to know I'm going to come back and make a bloody good film eventually. So I have two things. I have the documentary version of Downhill from Here, my book about running from John O'Groats to Land's End, available on Amazon and bookshops, hopefully. And if it's not there, kick up a stink. And then I have a film called 20 Questions. And all I'm going to say about that is it's a psychological thriller, and it is not Sparks and Embers. It's pretty unpleasant in places. It's hopefully quite frightening, and it will be very different if we manage to get that together. I'm hoping to do a little teaser trailer either later this year, or we're running out of weeks, so perhaps early 2023. And if we can get the money to do a shoot in 2023, that would be fantastic. But I will make another movie, and I will make a better movie. But I tell you, I learned so much from making Sparks and Embers, and I wouldn't, if I had a chance to have 5 years of my life back, but I hadn't made that film, I don't think I'd make that deal. I think I'd say, no, I'm glad I made that film. I learned, it was a massive steep learning curve. It is very difficult to make a movie, and to make a good movie that coheres, that has a story, that you care about the characters, it's well shot, the music's good, it's well edited, the sound's recorded well, the sound's mixed well, etc., etc., etc. It is not an easy thing to do. Writing a novel or writing a memoir is a piece of piss compared to making a movie, frankly. So I am glad that I'm one of the few people who's made a film, and it had a decent budget. This was not done on a complete shoestring. This was done on a couple of shoestrings and a pair of boots. Yeah, I mean, it's not what they call micro budget, it's the next level up. So that is the story of Sparks and Embers. And if you're interested to see Sparks and Embers and you have Amazon Prime, you can watch it now. And if you don't have Prime, Google it. You'll probably find it on I think it might be on some other streamers. It was on Netflix for 4 years. Did quite well, I think, but Netflix will never tell you how many people watch your movie. Has it made its investors their money back yet? I don't know. I'm not a party to that. I'm not one of the producers. I don't handle the finance. Maybe it has by now. I don't know. Yeah. But anyway, don't end on a downbeat note. I had a great time making Sparks and Embers. I learned a vast amount. The actors enjoyed it. The crew seemed to have a good time. The audience seemed to quite like it when they get to see it. And it's not the be-all and end-all of a director's life to make one movie that doesn't work. Some of your favourite directors have made movies that the critics and audiences hated. If you do it as your first, it's not ideal. But I wouldn't say it was hated. There's definitely films that have had a much worse reception. But it just wasn't. It wasn't beloved. I wanted to make Before Sunrise something that was full of heart and funny and moving. And I think it does have moments where you see that, where you feel that. And I think I nailed the ending, and that's something I'm proud of. So if you want to watch the film, please do so. Make comments to this video, ask me questions. I'll try and be as honest as I can. And if you are filmmakers, screenwriters or directors, producers, just do it. Just go for it. We only have one short life, so find a way to make your ambition come true. You never know. And with the sound of a plane taking off for exciting, maybe that plane's on its way to Hollywood, who knows? I will bid you adieu, and I'll be back soon. Goodbye.